In this video, we're gonna play a little bit with the sculpting tools and soft poly modeling in Blender. Now, we already talked about soft poly modeling, but we created something like armchair and furnishing, which are a little bit soft, but not they don't have many details as when you use the sculpting tools. So using sculpting tools, you can add a lot of details and you can create organic shapes here and characters, animals, and things like that, or like plants and trees and so on. So we started with the art poly modeling to create architecture, interior design. Then we also saw how we can go from standard modeling, like art poly modeling, to something more soft and smooth. So we saw the basics of soft poly modeling starting from art poly modeling. Now here we're going to talk about the sculpting, but before we do that, we're going to see some extra tools here in the modeling part. So I'm going to Shift D and copy this cube and bring it right here. So you can see there in the back that I have like multiplied, or we can call this an array. So I created a polar array. Now to do that, we have some tools here in the edit mode. So we're gonna switch from object to edit, or we can use also these tabs here. So this is layout, modeling, and then sculpting. So let's go and work a little bit more here with the modeling. So I've selected this cube here, and if I want to multiply that, let's say that I want to create a series of chairs around a table, or you can see here I've created this kind of circular evolution of this cube. So to do that, you can use these two tools here, spin and spin duplicates. Now, if you do spin duplicates, you can take any polygon of your mesh, and based on this gizmo here, you will basically kind of extrude it, and you can use different steps. So there you go. And you can also adjust the cursor there and the pivot, or change the position of the object to control it. And so you can do this with the single polygon, or you can press A and use the overall polygon here. Let me just deactivate the subdivisions and turn into the flat mode. So right click and do shade flat. So this is gonna be like a simple cube. And let's go back to edit mode. Okay, now if I do that again with the spinning duplicates, you can see I can create copies of these. Again, could be like chairs around the table, things like that. Now if I click again, it's gonna create more, and then I can change the center a little bit, so to create kind of a spiral. And again, you can continue, adjust it, and do it again, and so on. So this is how you can multiply. It's similar to the sequence, but this time it's radial, and this is called polar array in other software. Now another tool there was the this one here, which is the spin, or we can call this revolve. And this is similar to another modifier that we already saw, which was the screw, but here we used a single curve, or curves, or NURBS, but here we can use polygons. So for example, if I delete some of these, so I'm gonna just select some of these polygons, I'm gonna delete this with the delete key. Okay, so just delete some of these faces. Okay, so that we have a single surface basically. So let's delete, and also this one here. Okay, and also I want to get rid of those, and this one here, and this one here. Okay, so I have this like surface. I can edit this surface using the points. Okay, just gonna do something real simple here. And then when you do that, you can select the faces, and you can do the spin Okay, so it works similar to the array. So you always have that gizmo, but if you click here, again, what you're creating is a revolving shape. So you can increase the steps if you want more subdivisions, and also you can set the correct angle here 360 to close it up, and then you can change the center from here. So you can create like wheels or well, anything, vases or dishes, anything that's again kind of a circular shape. Now there is also a really interesting feature right here when you are in edit mode, which is the auto merge. So when the vertices are near enough, they're going to be merged together, and if you go here in the options, you can see that you can auto merge from here and use the threshold. So if you increase this threshold, where you have a limit here, but you need to be inside that limit in order for the vertices to be merged. Now let me go back here just to show you an example. So if I, for example, make this really close to this other one, it's gonna automatically merge. Now if you want, you can also do that manually by selecting those two vertices, right-clicking, and merging vertices like this. So they're gonna be merged together. And this is useful when you need to close, for example, some surfaces that are still open. And also we have symmetry here, which is pretty important when you have symmetrical objects. You don't need to model all of them, but you can just then use the symmetry to work only on one side. But I'm going to show you everything in just a minute. Just going to delete this. Now you can see that I've also activated the wireframe mode. Well, this is not actually the wireframe mode, which is this one here, but it's another way you can display the polygons, and you can activate that from here. Going to the geometry part, you can activate wireframe. You can also change the opacity, and this is really handy when you work with polygons and a lot of polygons, so you can, you know, make sure that you are not using too much polygons or not too few. Okay, so this one here, it's a character that I have modeled based on an image. So just as we modeled the fish before using a reference image, we can do that also with a simple sketch like this that I have personally done. It's not the best sketch, but it's good to explain to you how you can use references, which could also can be made by you, and do some character design. So I'm going to use this reference and I'm going to model my character. Now before we jump into action, I want to show you that basically you can use any reference that you find on the web. So if you, well, in the previous lesson we modeled a fish, but you can easily model a spoon, or you can model a fork. Now just try to figure out your object in a very simple way, so that it's composed only by like cubes, and then you can smooth that out at the end, just as we did again in the previous video. So using this technique, you can model basically anything. Now, when you model characters, this is a little bit more complex because you have a lot of details. So you cannot do everything here with the poly modeling, soft modeling, but you need to switch then into sculpting mode in one way or the other. So you need to, if you want to increase the level of details, you need to move on and use the sculpt tools. But you can design the rough character as I did here, and then move on into sculpting mode. That's going to be easier than to sculpt it. And also I want to suggest you a couple of software like ZBrush and Mudbox. So we're going to make some videos also about this later on, but you will find similar tools here in Blender. So you can definitely use Blender. But for example, in ZBrush, you will find a lot of different features and tools that's going to help you to create character design. So the simplest thing you could do actually is to get a simple sphere like this. So I'm gonna Shift D and copy this. Now actually this is not a sphere, as you remember from the previous video, but this is a cube which has been smoothed out. So if I see this wireframe, you can see that that doesn't have polygons, so I cannot really sculpt on this. If I go here in the modifier and I take this to 0, well, this is actually a cube. So this is an illusion that it's showing me a smoothed object, which is not really there. It's just an effect that I'm applying. So if I move it to the sculpting mode, you can see there that I can sculpt really few elements because I don't really have subdivisions here. This is just an effect. So I need to go back to object mode. And here, right click, convert into mesh. Now you can see there that I have actually polygons and vertices to play with. So now if I go back to sculpt mode, I have a lot of options here to sculpt around my mesh. So this is the first important step. Now to sculpt is really easy. So you can just click there and use the simple brush here, which is the draw brush. Now if you click with your left mouse, this is gonna basically push or pull the polygons. So in this case, it's pulling the polygons in the direction of the normals. So it's gonna pull them outside. If you hold the Control key, it's gonna push them inside. And these are the two basic functions. But you can do already a lot with this simple brush there. You can already start to sculpt your model. Now another important tool is Shift. Now when you do Shift, this is gonna smooth out those parts that you already sculpted. Okay, now you can see that I'm working only in one part of the mesh, but if I go back, Ctrl Z, again we can activate symmetry. So if I activate symmetry, be careful where you activate it. So this is on the Z, this is on the epsilon. You can see the extra points there, and this is on the X. You can also do that in all these directions simultaneously, but usually you will use the X. So in this case, I don't need to go one side at the other. I'm just gonna work in one side, and this is gonna mirror what I do in one side to the other. So it's really handy, and we can use it also in the modeling part. So I'm going to place this in another position, and let's use a